Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the New College of Florida Board of Trustees meeting. Today is Thursday, June 26th, and we are scheduled to run from 3 to 5. I'm going to ask everybody, before we start the meeting, to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Fitzpatrick, can you please call the meeting to order and give us a roll call and establish quorum, please?
Yes.
And confirm public notice of the meeting.
Trustee Anderson?
Here.
Trustee Baldonado?
Here.
Trustee Bauerlein?
Present.
Trustee Harvey?
Here.
Trustee Jaco?
Here.
Trustee Karp?
Here.
Trustee Kessler? Not here. Trustee Mackey is not present. Trustee Patterson?
Present.
Trustee Rufo? Should be joining us. Trustee Spalding?
Here.
Chair Jinks?
Here.
Vice Chair Cristaldi?
Here.
We have quorum and the meeting was publicly noticed.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to call for public comment. New College's process is, if you wish to speak and provide public comment, you needed to sign up 48 hours before this meeting, and you're going to come up and address items that are on our agenda. I believe that we have 3 public commenters today. Ms. Fitzpatrick will call you to the podium. Please take your minute with the countdown and then yield the microphone to the next person called.
So first up this afternoon, we have Kathleen Cody, followed by Rodrigo Diaz.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen Cody, charter class alum, speaking on behalf of NCF Freedom. I'm addressing item 4. Complying with the NAIA and Title IX regulations runs the risk of severely impacting NC education because it may penalize students for attempting classes they don't sat. It could mean compromising our academic endeavors to appease athletic goals. Number 8, delegating the decision of appropriateness to the president is not mandated by the BOG, and New College appears to be the only SUS unit doing so. This should be left to the division chairs or the provost. Number 9, without seeing the March proposal and lacking clarity regarding the status of the design, this vote should be postponed until the trustees and campus community can assess what is involved. Number 10, Tidy Island has been used for student and faculty research intermittently for 4 decades. The administration should have provided balanced information to allow trustees to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodrigo Diaz, please.
Regarding the proposed amendment to Regulation 4-2003, Textbook and Instructional Materials Affordability, the amendment would require that every professor attest that every instructional material is appropriate for the course to which it is assigned. The amendment would also empower the president to implement unspecified additional policies to further the regulation. But what would happen if the president implemented an additional policy that said that if he disagreed that a text was appropriate for a course, that text could not be taught in the course? The president would have a de facto veto over the faculty's right to determine the content of instruction. No other public university in Florida empowers its president this way. Trustees, please delegate the power to implement the regulation solely and entirely to the faculty, not to the president. Thank you, and happy Pride Month, everybody. Queer joy.
That concludes our public comment.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. The items were sent out to you in your materials.
Move to approve consent.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion. Okay, then can we call the vote, please? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay. Thank you. President's report. President's report.
Thank you, Chair. Just a ton going on and all positive. Just having a continued a terrific run of success. Right now, start with growing students. We'll have our third class in a row of over 300 students, that a number that had never been achieved in New College's history for a single class, let alone three in a row. This class will put us at the highest enrollment ever in the history of New College, somewhere between 900 and 950, also a number never achieved before in New College history. In addition to that, our SAT score is up to 1,200, and our GPA is hovering right around 4.0. Right now it's about 3.97, I think. So we're very close on increasing our metrics. The number of rejections that we've done is, I think, an all-time record of rejections. So our selectivity is getting better. And we're balancing not only increasing those numbers as quickly and rapidly as possible with massive recruiting. We now have people that are going to schools all across the state. The greatest expenditure that we do in terms of scholarships is to the best and the brightest. And all of that is starting to reap great rewards. And so we're excited about that. Our graduate students are up to 28, 15 and 15 in both programs. We'll launch, with your guys' approval, as you know, we've gone through it multiple times, the Masters in Ed Leadership. We're looking for the right dean or director, and we've gone through a couple great recommendations. They've all fallen through for one reason or another, and working with the provost and the faculty, we think, getting a full year of recruiting the faculty and a full year recruitment, that program alone next fall could generate 30 to 50 students. So very positive and be very fruitful economically pretty much from the outset. So we're excited about that. Our faculty hiring, we're almost done. We'll have that book, like we did last year, where we give a picture and a bio of all the faculty. We're at 20 plus. There's a couple that we're still working on, so it's not ready for prime time. Obviously, one of them that we've been talking to at length on doing a presidential scholar is Professor Dershowitz, who spoke at our graduation. That's not finalized, so once we get everything finalized, we'll get you that list, but it'll be 20 plus professors. It's just been a wonderful recruitment year, working closely with the provost and the faculty, and I think we've really done a wonderful job in bringing just tremendous prestige with adding to our already prestigious faculty. The budget update is just terrific. It's not final. Normally we would have all the budget items that you have before you would go through Chair Cristaldi's committee. We couldn't have a subcommittee. It was because the budget wasn't even done, so we didn't even know what was going to be in the budget. But we have the final budget numbers that we got last weekend, and they're subject to veto, obviously, through Monday. We feel very confident that we're going to keep the money, but basically it's an increase of about $36 million. We got $5 million to start the new student center, the Rice building that would begin to build out that Dort walkway quad of moving the kids to the west side of campus. It's, and again, we'd have to ultimately we have designs that are just there for visual purposes, but nothing's been approved, so you guys will have to go through that. But we got the first $5 million tranche for that, which is great, so we can start that design and engineering. We got $6 million in a revert and reappropriate. You guys might recall when we first got here, we got $6 million to renovate one of our old classroom buildings that's not really a wise expenditure. And so we wanted to use the revert and reappropriate in the first year with the legislature to go to purchasing the land from the airport, which would have been $11 million, so we'd need another $5 million to do that from the legislature. That fell through with the FAA for obvious reasons. And we're still working with the airport on that. We're still working on different machinations with the new FAA, which we think are going to go very well. But that $6 million we got revert and reappropriated for all of our continued campus renovations and improvements. So that's a great swath of money. And then we got $25 million non-recurring for everything from operational to physical plants, everything. So it's a $36 million windfall. We'll know final Monday, but obviously the governor's been tremendously supportive of New College and all of you guys, so we feel very confident about that. The foundation, just in the last 60 days in terms of growing money, got a $2.5 million donation to build a contemplative center. If you look at the other 11 universities, they all have some sort of a contemplative center. And what's really exciting about it is we actually were looking for $2 million. They ended up giving us $2.5 million. There's a real good chance that we'll have extra money after building the contemplative center, because it's not huge. It's a small little building. It'll be built on the 9 acres that was gifted to us by Manatee County for free. That give or take 20 million piece of property. So we'll put it up there. It'll be beautiful. It'll overlook the bay, and it will probably, we hope, generate somewhere in the ballpark of 750, and this is something that Trustee Patterson's been working with us tremendously on, is building our auxiliary revenues, where we have tremendous freedom on how we use those dollars. And if you have this contemplative center, and we also have the College Hall and Cook Hall and hopefully soon a renovated Caples, you're going to have this tremendous stream of revenues coming in as auxiliaries. We think the Contemplative Center could be upwards of $750 to $1 million a year in auxiliary revenues for the school, which is just tremendous. So in addition to having a great space for students, faculty, and even the community. So that's later in the agenda that you'll see it. In addition to that, we got $500,000 from Pat Neal. He was a former state senator. He's a developer in town, has been a longtime friend of New College. His wife worked for New College, Charlene. Wonderful people, just, part of the backbone of this community. And so we're very excited about that. Suffice it to say, we're pushing $6 million in revenues. It'll close on Monday, so we don't have the actual final numbers, but we're somewhere between $5.7 and $6 million in revenue, which is the second most in as far back as 10 years. It's harder to go back, but I would anticipate second most in history, and the most ever with multiple donations. And we've had multiple $1 million donations in this calendar. As you remember, back in December, we got $1 million from another great stalwart in the community, Carlos Baruf. So all told, we'll be pushing $6 million, and our goal to try to get our fundraising up and get our endowment up to $100 million. But we're well on the way, and it was a very positive sign. And these guys have all said something along the lines, it may be my first donation, but it's not my last. So it's very exciting with a lot of these guys. And so the foundation donations is also growing at a rapid speed, and we're very excited about it. As you know, we got hit with 2 hurricanes back-to-back in about less than 14 days. We've started to do our FEMA claims. We borrowed $2.5 million from our reserves. We've already paid back, I think, 1.3, Christy, or 1.2?
We've 1.3.
1.3 million we've already paid back, so we have another 1.2 to pay back, but we are anticipating that coming in quick order, so we'll have the reserves paid back to the $2.5 million, and then we're going to have all this additional money, and we're fixing the roofs and fixing those types of things. They came and they looked at the portables. They're going to remove the portables and reimburse us for the portables. All told, it's going, in the next calendar year, somewhere between maybe upwards of $5 million in revenues that will come in the next 12 months, in addition to the 1.3 that we already collected. So we're working with the insurance and we're working with FEMA, and it's going well. We have people on the ground and constantly having them come through so that we can get those reimbursements as quickly as possible. We've had the usual, we called them Welcome Wednesdays. Now we call them New Student Days. We've gone through two new student days. We have this summer for the first time five academic type camps: music, history, AI, marine science, just a whole group. In fact, Trustee Karp and I just went through, because it's actually his daughter's in one of the camps, but we just went through Pritzker Marine Bio, 25 kids, 2 of our professors teaching them, and everyone's just having an amazing time. And of course, the whole point is we anticipate that this is going to result in us recruiting some just excellent students across the board. In addition to that, the sports have their camps that are going. So again, all of this helps us make it better and better and easier and get higher and higher score students coming to New College. So we're excited about that. If you come to the campus, as usual, everything's under construction, and we're not slowing down, obviously, with this new tranche of money. And so we'll keep moving forward as quickly as possible. Caples, we're in the process of redoing the roof and the chimneys and all that kind of stuff. That would mean the last thing left on Caples for a full renovation is just the outside stucco. So we're working through that. New roof on the library. Again, now that we've gone through the whole insurance process, we'll probably get most of it paid with insurance, which frees up more money for us to do it. We're putting new strobic fans on Heiser, which has been a problem for a lot of our faculty, and the temperature gauges and braking. That'll all happen this summer. The park at the front, where we used to have the batting cages, getting completely redone. It'll be a beautiful park for not only our students and our campus, but also for the public. The Pritzker renovation is almost done. They're doing the final part, which is the roof and then the landscaping around it. All of this will be done in the end of August range when the students come back. In addition to that, for the first time in almost 10 years, we're hosting the Board of Governors, which is a pretty prestigious thing to do. So all the leaders of our regulatory board come here. They'll be in this building, and they'll see probably a campus that barely resembles what they have seen in the past, which is exciting. And it's also prestigious for us. It also is on September 11th, so we're building around some just tremendous events showcasing the liberal arts and the value of the liberal arts from the time they arrive to what they, where we host them, whether it's College Hall. The entire experience is going to say this is a university not like others. You'll hear sometimes, we're the only university that does that. Well, I will tell you that's one of the best sentences, and the one sentence we have to hang our hat on. There's a reason for that, because we are doing something very, very different from all the other universities. We are the only ones with ISPs and contracts and tutorials, and we need to preserve that and protect it and educate them on why that process results in a tremendous result. The master plan, one of the other projects is, we had that field, and you remember the mangroves along the waterfront had not been cleaned out probably ever. And invasives were knocking the mangroves into the bay, destroying their growth. We pulled out all of the invasive species. We worked with our biologists. We worked with local folks and alumni and trying to identify exactly how to do it. The growth of the mangroves has been exponential. We just had a group out there. We have a former alumni who's opened up a environmental landscaping business. He's gone down there now with his crew, a lot of New College alums, and we're doing the largest resiliency and restoration of the bayfront, planting about 300 more mangroves, saltwater tolerant resiliency grasses along the coast. It's going to be absolutely beautiful, and hopefully that'll be completely done and even have the growth starting to be manifested by the time we have the Board of Governors meeting. But it'll be spectacular, and I'm sure you'll read op-eds from some of these former students who are very excited about the groundbreaking work that we're doing on the waterfront. The campus master plan is the last thing. That should be released, Christy, today?
It's been released.
It's been released. So the campus master plan has been released. The informational meeting is July 17th?
July 15th.
July 15th, I'm in the ballpark. And that's the informational meeting. And then following that, the Board of Trustees will have a meeting, and that will be the first public hearing, and that's where you guys, it will be virtual, and you guys can attend virtually, but it's just really listening and taking in public comment and public input. But that's released, it's online, and it's very similar to our ones in the past, so I don't think it's going to shock anyone. But it's also, in talking to some of our alumni, they wanted the entire packet, including the literature release, and so we've done the entire packet. With that, I think yeah. Yes, Trustee Bauerlein?
The enrollment numbers sound great, Richard, and I think this is one of the most important measures of our progress. We got to get up to where we should be, but I'm wondering if there's a problem. If we were to break 1,000 students in fall 2026, do we have the capacity yet? Do we have the facilities? Do we have the beds? Where are we on that?
The answer is yes and no. Really, the answer is no, Trustee Bauerlein, but the answer is no with a potential yes. So this session, we were very, very close. You may have read articles, and I think we've sent them to you, where the University of South Florida and New College leadership got together. They worked out, hey, what is a great opportunity for USF? What's a great opportunity for New College? And the focus being on what's best for the students. And so we had worked out language. It's been publicized through public records. And I think that's still on the table. This session, as you know, was probably, I think it was I know it was the longest legislative session in the history of the state of Florida. So it just gives you, and they're supposed to be 60 days. This one went, literally, the budget's going to close with the governor's vetoes on Monday the 30th, right before July 1st when the new fiscal year starts. It's never happened before. And so because of that, just a lot of things got pushed to the side because of the controversy and the tension between the House and the Senate and the governor and the legislature, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the nice thing is we go right back into a legislative session, Trustee Bauerlein. In election years, our sessions are January, February, and finish in March. So by the end of March, still well ahead of the August deadline, if that negotiation still continues and that deal continues to move forward, that would free up an additional, give or take, 60 to 70 beds. which would help us for that next recruiting class. At the same time, we're going to come before you in short order with residence housing under the old master plan. There's residence housing along 58th Street. We've demolished the houses that are on 58th Street. It's just now beautiful grass. And so we could build, like our letter dorms. Our letter dorms hold about 25 to 30 students. So we could do 25 to 30 homes, quote unquote, or letter type dorms down 58th Street. And that would give us hopefully another capacity for 100 plus students, allowing for quicker growth, because those we could probably construct in less than 12 months. But the bigger facilities that are in the new master plan, which would be the Rice building that we got the $5 million to start, which is the student cafeteria, hangout, and classrooms and office space, that would be the start of it. And then right next to them on the, would be, if pending approval, would be the beginning of the quad with, 100, they're basically, just think of them as Cs, facing Dort. And each, a square C, each one of the three buildings would house somewhere between 75 and 100 students. So that would allow us to grow to 1,500 students. And those, once the master plan starts, we could start that construction. But that's probably 2 years of construction for those. But we're going to move quickly, and I think we'll be able to adopt given those likelihoods that are on the table.
Thank you. Trustee Baldonado, you have a
I
question?
have a follow-up question. With such a high enrollment this year, I was wondering, for this year specifically, is there enough housing for students? I've heard that there might be a wait list for some students, and I'm worried about the financial impact that having to look for off-campus housing might be for students.
No, we feel really confident with the numbers for this, Trustee Baldonado. We basically have looked at 10, 15-year histories of quantity of students off campus. In the last probably 10 years, we hover in that 150 to 250 range, depending. So we just use 200 as a conservative number. And so if we back out, we're 900 to 950, and we back out 200, we're right at about 700 beds. So we feel like we're going to be in a good place for housing. We did get, even though we didn't get the campus, we did get an additional 30 plus, maybe almost 40 beds from the University of South Florida. So that allows us to grow, and we'll have to do one more hotel for at least one more year.
Mm-hmm. If there is the situation where more beds are needed, is college able to provide housing or support for the students who might need that?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, you were probably a first year, but in that first year in 23 with the massive recruitment of students, even with the students who left, and then we closed the pays because they were just completely unsatisfactory, to say the least. We immediately entered into contracts within, I give credit to Dean Rancourt, Dean Jacks. We entered into contracts in 7 days and got students into great housing right next to the campus.
Thank you. And you mentioned something about building new houses or new housing under the old master plan. Is there a timeline for that?
As quickly as possible. So it is, we go by a timeline with the Board of Governors and the regulatory process. So they come out, they look at our student growth, they look at our cost per bed, what it is, and then it goes before the BOG, gets approved. But since it's under the old master plan, we could break ground right away. We don't have to wait for any other approvals because it's already been through the approval process under the old master plan. So our hope would be that we could have something before you guys, and tell me if I'm completely off, but somewhere in the early spring of next year, break ground. And then hopefully have them open by the close of the year so they would come online mid-semester.
When would we be able to vote on something as a board? When's the soonest?
I'd have to look at the timeline. We can get you the timeline.
Thank you.
But it's already in the master plan. You guys have already approved it in the past. So it's just basically the financing and the stuff that goes through that approval process would come before you guys for final approval.
Thank you.
Trustee Spalding?
Yeah, I just have some clarification questions just to draw a few things out. I too was also impressed by the numbers going up towards 950. Am I recalling correctly that prior to your coming out, what are they talking about? This was supposed to be set up for around 1,200? Wasn't that the objective?
Yeah, so it really wasn't set up, if that meant like they had the infrastructure for it. They didn't. But the legislature was
that understood to be a goal, though? Was that kind of what they wanted to get to?
So they basically, the pitch that our predecessors made was, if you give us this tranche of money, upwards of $10 million, and we are able to go out recurring, and we're able to go out and recruit additional faculty, those additional faculty will take them at that point in time was their highest enrollment ever. I think it was 880. So they were at 880, and they said, if you give us this extra money, we can go out, get these new professors, recruit these new students, and grow to 1,200 within, I want to say they said 4 or 5 years. Instead, when we got here, I think in March 1st, when I got here, the enrollment was 605. So
So it begs the question then, so what is your goal?
I think that if you, and you know this better, so I'll defer to Trustee Bauerlein, but, in just doing tons of research and having tons of conversations with you, and you look at who are the elite liberal arts schools and what's that range and enrollment, I think 1,200 to 2,000 is the number. So I would just say for us, and I think what we talk about is 1,500, somewhere on the low end of that range, which I think is Hillsdale.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that, you maintain all of that uniqueness and closeness and faculty relationship, which gives you that specialness of a degree.
That's the key, is what's the relationship, because faculty-student ratios and those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
I just kind of wondered. And then second thing, in the budget, you talked about some of it being designated, but then 25 million non-recurring, which is undesignated. I assume you've already got in mind what that money's spent, probably?
It's before you.
Yeah.
It's in the budget. Every penny is spent in the budget you're about to approve.
Okay. And then a third point, just kind of looking ahead, you mentioned the master plan has just been released, but this has kind of been going on for some time, actually quite a long process. So I assume we're just kind of moving forward with what we've already been doing, what's already been out floating around and we've seen many times.
It is probably, Trustee Spalding, not even exaggerating, 90+% the same as what's been out there, yes.
Yeah.
And it is probably the longest master plan process ever undertaken, but we want to get it right. I'll tell you.
Saying released implies that some of it's been done behind closed doors and it's being brought out. This has been going on for some time.
And this is the starting point. This is what we're supposed to do under statute, is to put forth a plan and get as much input as you possibly can, including an informational session and 2 public hearings, which will do all of that process. In addition, we've always had, even as we restarted the master plan process, we've always had any comments or thoughts or ideas available online. All of those are documented and dispersed. So it's a very open and transparent process. And we want to get it right. I think, I'll just tell you 2 of the things that we talk about, which I think are really important. As I drive around, because the Board of Governors, the President and the Chair, we go to each one of those meetings. We're hosting the one in September, which is next. But it goes to different universities, and we always try to get there early and look around and what have you. And I look at some of the newer buildings and things that are being done. These are not inexpensive. These are $50 million plus, $100 million buildings at the bigger universities, $50 million plus for us. And what I say is, when someone comes to, and a lot of this I've gotten from you all, but when someone comes to Sarasota and Manatee County and they're coming to visit, anybody as a friend, family, whatever, a beach vacation, I want when they land and someone says, okay, what should I do in Manatee, Sarasota? I want them to say, you have got to go to New College and look at their buildings. They're just absolutely breathtaking. And the second thing is, if we do that right, they'll exist just like College Hall, just like all of the other historic buildings. They'll exist for 100 or 200 years because they're beautiful and they stand the test of time, just like a liberal arts education stands the test of time. Great books stand the test of time. Our architecture and our landscape should stand the test of time. So we want to get it right.
Great,
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Okay. We're going to move into the Finance and Administration Committee matters, and Vice Chair of the Board and Chair of the Committee of Finance and Administration is going to run this, but I think what we're going to do, since we have 4 bullet points, is I'm going to ask for in advance.
Separately.
We're going to address them separately, so I'm going to, it's on your agenda, it's item 5. I'm going to ask for a motion, before we do the presentation, a motion for approval of the 2025-2026 preliminary operating budget.
It's item 6.
It's item 6 on
First
your,
thing, item 6.
it's item 5 on my sheet.
Item 6. Item 6.
Item 6, okay. So it's approval of the 2025-2026 preliminary operating budget. Can somebody make that motion, please?
Move to approve.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, and I'll make a motion to approve the college's 2025-2026 preliminary operating budget as proposed, and to authorize the president to make the necessary adjustments to the budgets during the operating year.
Thank you, and
You do need a second.
I need a second.
Second.
Trustee
Second.
Spalding, thank you. Okay, with that, Trustee Cristaldi, I'm going to turn this one item over to you, and then we'll go back to each subsequent item, okay?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And it's great to see everyone. Good afternoon. We do have 4 items under the Finance and Administration Committee line item in our budget today. Typically, these types of items would have been a workshop discussed, considered, and approved at the committee level. However, in this case, I do want to point out to my fellow trustees that we did not have an opportunity to do that, given some timing issues. And so although I personally have spent a good amount of time with President Corcoran and Ms. Fitzpatrick going through each of these 4 items, they do come to you de novo here for approval by the board. This first item is our preliminary operating budget, and I'd like to ask Ms. Fitzpatrick to present the detail.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item before you today is our preliminary operating budget, and this will be submitted to the Board of Governors as required each year. Any adjustments that will be made to this budget, because it is a preliminary, will be brought before you at the August meeting that we're scheduling. Just wanted to highlight a few things for you, just as reference. You won't see a lot of changes that are happening. If anything, you'll see a lot of revenue increases. That's due to our increased enrollment, which we're very grateful for from a financial perspective. One of the things I will point out that you'll notice and may see an inconsistency on right now is our 2024-25 budgeted revenue comparison to the appropriated revenue for 25-26 is down slightly. That is due to not having the carry forward budget quite completed yet, which will be done by the August meeting and will be before you at that meeting as well. Couple of other things that have already been mentioned by the president, but our E&G funding has increased by $10.3 million or 15.3%. That also is mainly due to an increase in our tuition and fee revenue that we're anticipating being at $5.5 million, which is an increase over last year. Some of the other items that are in here that I want to tell you are tentatively approved are performance-based funding, which is coming in at $9.1 million this year. That will not be approved until the Board of Governors approves it in July at one of their special meetings they're going to have for that again, due to a timing issue with the budget. A couple other things just to mention in our auxiliary revenues. The athletic fee, you'll see quite a difference between what we had showing as revenues last year, which was $679,000, compared to this year's revenue of athletic fees of $283,000. That difference there is just to point out is in respect to we had budgeted some initial revenue coming in this past year. For example, ticket sales, sponsorships, and things like that. And some of those did not come in at the revenue levels that we are anticipating. It doesn't mean that we, doesn't really mean all that much. It was just what we had to modify our projections based on that. So the 283 is reflective of what we anticipate is the collection of the athletic fee and will be spent on athletics and recreation this next year. One last thing to point out, so in the foundation support, you'll also notice that those adjustments, the overall foundation support is increasing to $4.47 million over last year's $3.35 million. That's mainly due to a few scholarship adjustments and enhancements, as well as our lobbying support that comes directly from the foundation has increased as well. And that concludes the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Are there any questions or discussions on this agenda item? Hearing in. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say that not in this room.
Okay, I was going to say hearing in and seeing none. We've got a motion and a second. Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I'll call the question.
Please.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Madam
Madam Chair, would you like me to move to the next one, or would you
Please.
like to do that?
Yes, you're on a roll. Let's go. It's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next agenda item is the fiscal year 25-26 legislative budget request. Begins on page 59 of the agenda. I'd like to open to get request a motion to approve New College's fiscal year 25-26 legislative budget request and to authorize the president to adjust the request if determined necessary in the best interest of New College and report to the board at its next regularly scheduled meeting following any such adjustment.
Move to.
Motion.
Trustee Barrowline, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Didn't see who that was, but I did hear a second.
It was Trustee Carp.
Thank you, Trustee Carp. Ms. Fitzpatrick, would you please present this agenda item?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The following items that are before you this afternoon for legislative budget request for this next fiscal year, 25-26, include the following funding for critical campus safety and security enhancements. This is an issue that all of the universities are submitting to the Board of Governors for this year for enhanced safety and security for campuses across the state. I don't think it needs any explanation more than that. And there's been obviously a couple of issues that have come up over the last year, and we all would love to receive some additional funding towards that. One of the other items is our Master's in Educational Leadership funding. We're requesting $620,000 for that. $120,000 is for startup of that program, and $500,000 would be recurring for the instructors and the director that the president had spoke about earlier today. That's the agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Are there any questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick or discussion?
Trustee Baldonado.
Trustee Baldonado has her hand up.
I know
Yes,
that-
Trustee.
Thank you. I know last year we did a legislative budget request for the Freedom Institute. Is that something that the college is pursuing this, still plans to pursue? And if so, what's the programming going to look like for the year?
We are still pursuing that too. These are pretty, this one and the next item is, you have to submit. And so we submit, but, if we get a tranche like we did of $25 million, again, recognizing it's non-recurring, then we can still use those funds for a Freedom Institute or the Educational Leadership Institute. But it's important for the legislature to see that we have specific things that we're looking to do. But we're still trying to do the Freedom Institute too, and actually actively working right now nationwide on talking to people who'd be interested in maybe leading the Freedom Institute. And there's a whole documents about civil discourse and academic freedom and civics and debate, and all of that programming that we do would be underneath the Freedom Institute. But it's still something we're pursuing actively.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other questions or discussion?
Trustee Spalding has his hand up.
Just on that, so as we're approving these things to go into a budget request then, or a budget approval comes back with some amount of money, like the Freedom Institute or like the one here, the Educational Leadership. And at that point, the money comes back. When we determine there's enough money to proceed, then we would step in and design what we're going to do with it.
Yes.
Right? So that's kind of the order in which it occurs, which doesn't, on the one hand, it seems kind of backwards, but on the other hand, that's the nature of the funding process.
It is, and it's even a little bit more layered than that, Trustee Spalding, in that we are one of 12 universities. Our bosses or regulators or parents or whatever you want to call it is the Board of Governors, and the Board of Governors wants everybody. They don't want 11 or 12 people going to the legislature and saying, we want this, and then the legislature is making these decisions without there being a cohesiveness looking at the entire state university system as a whole. And so what the BOG requires us to do is to say, okay, what are the things that you guys all want? And then they'll approve in their legislative budget request for the university system. Doesn't mean that we all have still the opportunity to go to the legislature, but they'll submit to the legislature, here's the Board of Governors recommendations. And the way, if it works perfectly and it works well, is the legislature would defer to those agencies and their recommendations and not allow other universities to go and make separate pitches. Same with arts, or same with, you have a council and all the people on the council say these are the top 20 projects, and the legislature should defer to them and go 1 through 20, but you'll also,
Right.
someone's a Senate president from Bradenton, and suddenly that, under President Galvano, that Manatee County Opera House got way more money, and it was number 27. I'm just kidding with President Galvano.
Are you saying sometimes politics changes things?
I'm just saying only the senators do it. House members don't do this.
But to the earlier question, the point is, these things come up
Yes.
recurring
Yes.
to us over and over again.
It's a requirement every
Which means
year.
we're going to get multiple bites at this apple. So
Correct.
it's not that something here is coming as a final say.
Correct.
This is the
Correct.
original request
That's
to do
correct.
something.
Correct.
Thank you, Trustee Spalding. Trustee Barrowline, I see your hand up.
Yes. About both the Freedom Institute and the Leadership Institute, we circulate a lot, some of us around the country at meetings. Should we be holding off on discussions about those initiatives or perhaps potential people who might be involved until we get that funding approval, or are we ready to talk about that?
The answer is we're ready to talk about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Thank you, Trustee
meaning which
Barrowline.
of the programs? The Freedom Institute or the?
The Freedom Institute or the educational leadership. We're ready to
One.
talk to both. Yep. And the goal would be to launch maybe even the Freedom Institute this year with money, the existing money we do have.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second. Madam Chair, is it okay if I call the question?
Please.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is the 25-26 legislative budget request, in this instance for fixed capital outlay dollars. In order to start discussion here, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the 25-26 legislative budget request for fixed capital outlay and to authorize the president to adjust the request if determined to be necessary in the best interest of New College.
So moved.
Thanks, Trustee Harvey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Heard a second.
Trustee
Is there-
Spalding did it here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are two items before you for the fixed capital outlay capital improvement plan that we have this year. One is for additional funding for the multi-purpose, or what we're calling the Rice building, that's supporting our enrollment growth, as the president described earlier in his comments. This would be for years 2 and 3. This year, we again got a little over $5 million to get that project going. This next year, we'll be requesting some additional funding for an overall remaining request of $63.4 million for that 75,000 square foot building. Second issue is for a chiller expansion. So as we add additional buildings on campus, we need to expand our chiller, which is combined with FSU right now. So that's a $6.9 million request for that. Those are the items, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Is there any questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick or discussions on this agenda item? Trustee Hart.
Just a question on the siting of that building. Are we thinking that's around the site of where the Palmer Letter buildings were? Or?
It's the master plan that's just released has it. The concept is it would be straddle Dort Walkway north of the.
Okay. So sort of adjacent to Heiser on that side?
Yeah, it would form. It would be adjacent to Heiser going across Dort Walkway with an arch underneath it, so it would match the arch at the beginning of the Dort Walkway and become the center hub of student activity. Would be right there, and then the dorms would be built just north of it. Between that location and Heiser would be the first 3 on either side of the Dort Walkway.
Great.
Pending approval, Trustee.
Thank you, Trustee Harvey. Any other questions or discussion?
Just a practical one. So we have $5 million in hand to start it. And am I reading this correctly? The next request is for $31 million for that building. But then the year after that, we will need $26 million more. So that'll be the next request, and that'll complete the building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And generally, when you get to about 80% funding, the presumption of the last 20% is pretty final because you can start construction. So they want everyone to finish their projects.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The last agenda item under the Finance and Administration Committee is the review and approval of both the New College Foundation, Inc.'s financial audit for its fiscal year 24 and its annual budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. And just as a reminder to the board, Regulation 3-7001 of New College of Florida direct support organizations are required to submit their annual budget to New College, this Board of Trustees. And the annual audit report also needs to be submitted to us for review and approval. Audit report was included in the packet, and it also, once approved by us, and the operating budget is prepared annually and approved by the Foundation Board and then subsequently submitted to us. This particular budget was approved by the New College Foundation, Inc. Board of Directors on April 23rd of this year. So let me first ask if there's a motion to approve the New College of Florida Foundation, Inc.'s financial audit for its fiscal year 24 year and the annual fiscal year 25-26 budget as presented.
I move.
Motion.
I see Trustee Bauerlein. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Mr. Chair, I really don't have much more to add to your comments, so unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that commentary in light of the fact that this is not our budget, but one of our direct support organizations. So let me go ahead and ask if there's any questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick or the president or any discussion. Trustee Harvey.
This is maybe getting ahead of ourselves, but looking a few years down the road, it strikes me that we're asking the foundation to do more, obviously, in terms of supporting programs at the college, notably the contribution to athletics. It feels like the endowment has been kind of set at roughly the same. It hasn't grown a whole lot in the 25 years I've been at the college. I know under the previous administration, there was talk of a capital campaign that never made it out of the quiet phase. Do we know if the foundation is going to be looking at a sort of a major capital growth campaign in the next few years? And if so, do you have any details on that?
They are.
Mr. President. Thank you.
They are working on it. We have a new chair over that who's a prominent businessman in town. And so the goal is to get to a $100 million endowment. That would put us near the top of liberal arts schools in the state. Maybe second to Rollins, which has obviously been established and has had lots of wealthy donors, so they're well over 100 million. I think they're closer to 400 million. But other than that, it would put us in a good stead. For every 10 million we add in fundraising at the foundation, generally it frees up, give or take, close to $1 million in revenues that we can use for students. So it's an important priority, and we're working on multiple tiered plan of increasing that. One was cutting costs, which we've done. I think when I got here, Trustee Harvey, the foundation endowment was around 42 million, and I think we're knocking on the door of 50 million. A lot of that is through cuts. A lot of that is through growth in the markets, changing our investment strategy, and also increasing our fundraising. So the goal, I think we're on a good trajectory. It's a solid line of growth. But they have it foundation fundraising, where we pitch different very wealthy established foundations on different programs, the Freedom Institute, the Civics and Debate, whatever it might be, our master's programs. We have individual donor programs and in different categories within the state and within the nation. So it's a good strategy.
Great. I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Harvey. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Madam Chair, I believe that concludes the Finance and Administration report.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Cristaldi and Chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. I know this was a lot of work, and appreciate your efforts here. Next up, we have the tenure consideration for Dr. Mons Holden. I have David Rohrbacher, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs at the podium. I'd like to entertain a motion, please, for the approval of tenure track candidate Dr. Mons Holden, and then I'll turn it over to Provost Rohrbacher. Can I have?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Harvey. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Bauerlein. Okay, Provost, you got the floor.
Okay, members of the Board of Trustees, Mons Holden is an internationally accomplished scholar in the fields of AI, machine learning, and natural language processing. Dr. Holden had been tenured for 5 years at the University of Colorado when he learned what we were doing in undergraduate computer science and graduate data science at New College. Professor Holden was brought to New College with the fast track towards tenure, but with only a year at the college, he already has an impressive record of achievement. He has contributed courses in machine learning, natural language processing, and algorithms, and an innovative course taught with a professor of music called Music and AI. Students praise his brilliance and his generosity, and he has already developed a loyal following. In service, he has been particularly helpful as the college formulates policies around generative AI. Professor Holden received positive votes from the Division of Natural Sciences and the Provost's Advisory Committee, and support for his tenure from me and from President Corcoran. I now turn the decision over to this board.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I assume this scheduling is consistent with his contract when he came here?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Discussion? Seeing none,
Very good candidate.
can we have a vote, please? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay, thank you. Motion carries, and congratulations to Dr. Mons Holden. Thank
I
you.
think he's virtually here somewhere. He's
He's AI.
he's AI. He's artificially here.
Thank you. We now have, and we're going to take regulation updates. I'm going to call David Brickhouse, Vice President of Legal Affairs, to the podium. And we have 3 items here of regulation amendments. We're going to take them one by one. So the first one on your agenda, which should be item 8.
Item 8.
Item 8.
Sorry,
Is,
this is a long packet. What page are we on after the tenure?
yeah. hang on.
176.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on page,
It's 8M, I'll show you right.
hang on. Everybody find it? You have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on page 176.
176, thank you. You guys got it right. So I've asked for a motion for the approval of regulation amendment of 3-1010 procurement services. Can somebody make the motion, please?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Carp. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Anderson. Okay, Mr. Brickhouse, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's not much to this regulation amendment. It merely conforms our regulation to match the language of a newly amended Regulation 9.002 from the Board of Governors. Notably, it changes the threshold for capitalization from a set $5,000 to the amount established by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Is there any questions of Mr. Brickhouse? Okay, seeing none, can we have a vote, please? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay, motion carries. Next item is the approval of Regulation Amendment 3-4018, Sexual Discrimination Harassment, and that's on
94.
page 194. May I have a motion, please, to approve?
Move to approve.
Trustee Carp moves to approve. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Trustee Patterson, I saw you first. And Mr. Brickhouse, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this proposed regulation amends and updates our sexual discrimination and harassment regulations to strike all of our existing regulation and replaces it with what is, I apologize for a quite lengthy document, but that reflects the current federal law, particularly with respect to Title IX. So happy to answer any questions that you have on it.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Am I correct? I would assume this was coming down from the BOG in terms of what should be changed and what should be added?
No, Trustee Spalding. So
What's the instruction based on? Yeah.
As many of you may recall, there was kind of a state of flux for Title IX. The Biden administration had proposed a new regulation that was delayed multiple times. Once it was finally issued, it was immediately enjoined by the federal courts. President Trump has since rescinded that, so we're back to the 2020 law, and so we're just codifying all the correct procedures, definitions, and policies for the 2020 law of Title IX.
So meaning it's going back to previous law.
Correct.
Okay, do we have any other questions? All right, there's been a motion and a second. Can we have a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay, motion carries. The third and last amendment here is approval of Regulation Amendment 4-2003, Textbook and Instructional Materials Affordability.
264.
It's on page 264 of your PDF materials. May I have a motion, please, for this item?
You say 260 or?
Move to approve.
Okay, Trustee Carp moved to approve. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Patterson, and discussion, Mr. Brickhouse, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This proposed regulation does come to bring our existing regulation into compliance with the amended Florida Board of Governors Regulation 8.003, specifically to clarify attestation requirements for faculty concerning course materials and affordability textbooks, updating the requirements for a searchable database, and some other language that tracks the language of the BOG regulation. I will point out, as you'll see in your packet, we did receive multiple public comments on this regulation. These comments primarily centered around two issues. The first, the application of the regulation to our ISPs and tutorials, and the second, the delegation of authority to the president. So with your permission, Madam Chair, I'll just address those two issues.
Please.
On the first issue, I did confirm with the BOG staff that the regulation does apply to ISPs and tutorials that are, those are covered by the BOG regulation. The expectation is that our regulation would cover them as well. However, they relayed that they had the same types of comments and issues raised to them when they originally proposed this and implemented this regulation. And they clarified to us, the same as they did to the other SUS schools, that the requirements only apply to the required materials in the course. And meaning, for example, a professor is not required or expected to review or attest to the materials, for instance, that a student chooses to use or cite for their thesis. Those are student decisions, and so the professors are not responsible for that. So those were a number of the comments. Same thing if you were doing, asking students to read the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, those don't exist yet at the beginning of the semester. The regulation requires that you have or will review those materials that you are requiring. And so that was the bulk of the first issue. And happy to answer any questions on that. As to the second issue, the proposed regulation does include a delegation to the president or designee to implement additional policies and procedures in furtherance of the regulation. That's consistent with this board's bylaws that reflect that the president is the chief executive officer as well as the chief academic officers under our regulations. And so it's a typical thing for us to do is to have a delegation from this board to the president who can then further subdelegate.
Do we have any questions? Hands raised? Yes, Trustee Harvey?
Yeah, just I also had passed on to Mr. Brickhouse concerns about applicability of this to tutorials and ISPs, and the response maybe doesn't go quite as far as I would have hoped, but I think that's something we can work with. Most of our tutorials, I think, don't really have assigned readings. These are usually set up to help students learn to conduct research and work towards their thesis topics. So if the BOG's position is that only those materials that are specifically assigned by a professor are subject to the regulation, I think we can do this. My initial concern was if we're going to have to attest to everything that every student comes across in their research, I don't see how we could possibly be in compliance. But I think this will work. So thank you, Mr. Brickhouse, for following up on that concern.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add myself that thank you, Trustee Harvey. And my experience in doing ISPs is dated now because it's been a long time since I was a student at New College. But in my experience in my field, which was history, my sponsor for my ISP or tutorial would enter into a contract with me, and it typically would include a reading list that we would develop together. And it would seem to me that consistent, but this is a question for House, that it's consistent with what you've said, that the student and the professor can develop a reading list for a curriculum for the ISP, and that list, whatever they chose, would fall within the scope of the regulation and be permissible.
That's correct, Trustee Cristaldi, and that was a specific conversation that I had with BOG staff, was again that the intent is to apply to materials that the instructors are requiring of students, and the intent's not really geared towards things that are mutually agreed to or that are generated by the students themselves.
Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Baldonado.
We did have a lot of public comment for this item, and I know this is the kind of thing that goes before the committees first. And given that there is a lot of concern still, I think I would like to motion that this could be committed to the Academic, Student, and External Affairs Committee.
Second. Is there a second?
Is there a second to the motion?
Can I ask a question?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
I can second it for the purpose of
There's
discussion.
no second to the motion.
No, I said, can I ask a question
Yes.
generally?
Yes, you may ask a
I just,
question.
this is a BOG requirement, correct?
That's correct, and so that the
So is
amended
there a
language is.
schedule, and, I mean, what are the, I mean, is it basically it's a requirement that we just have to absorb?
That's correct, and this request came from our Office of Institutional Research and the Provost Office specifically to update our regulation, which is currently out of compliance. So we need to update it.
This
to
is
match-
what is necessary for it to be in compliance.
That is correct.
Seems to be
So we really don't have much, this is directive that's being sort of handed down to us that.
It is, Trustee Carpet, it is a shall adopt mandate from the Board of Governors in terms of having the regulation that matches theirs. Obviously, it's the prerogative of this board to take the vote, but it is expected from the Board of Governors.
Okay, yes, Trustee Harvey?
Building on Trustee Cristaldi's recollections of his own student experience, and I'd say that this is still consistent with how we do things at New College, however many decades later. If the purpose is to generate reading lists for a database, I think we do generate reading lists for tutorials, but as you say, this is done kind of on the fly between the student and the professor. Does this have to be set down before the semester begins, or can we submit these after the tutorial has run its course and then include those in some sort of database?
Madam Chair, if I could get us in the right posture, Trustee Baldonado's motion is tantamount to a motion to suspend the current question, which is a motion to table, which requires a second. It did not have a second, and it's non-debatable.
Correct, so that motion has failed.
I think, Madam Chair, I think Trustee Harvey did second it.
Yeah, I
I'm not-
seconded it so that we could move on to
And call the
discussion.
vote
Okay, we'll call the vote on
on what is tantamount to a motion to table.
what is
and they
tantamount to a
should-
motion to table. So all those in favor of tabling,
Could I,
no?
just if I could maybe get an answer to the question I raised, just, to know what exactly we're required to do here, because I get the point. Yes, this is a state mandate, we have to do it. I'm trying to think how we can do this in a way that's consistent with our program.
That second, for whether we pass this, how you
Okay.
implement it is an internal discussion we might have in
All
light
right.
of this.
So, Trustee Harvey, I hate to give you the stereotypical lawyer answer, but it depends.
Okay.
And so, for your typical courses that History 101 is going
Yeah.
to be done, the expectation from the Board of Governors regulations that 95% compliance of those courses will be up and listed. That requirement does not apply to courses that are generated or agreed to after the deadline that's established by the regulation, which I believe a number of our ISPs and tutorials fall into that category. And so there's some nuance to that element.
Call the vote.
Okay, thank you.
So
Okay, so,
If I could just add to that, Trustee Harvey, I think give you another legal statement. We're going to comply with all the rules, the regulations, the statutes, as we should. We're going to fight to the nth degree, hate to say a different word, we'll fight to the nth degree to protect and honor what makes New College special, which are our tutorials, our ISBs, and our program.
Thank you, President Corcoran.
I did see Trustee Bauerlein had his hand up before. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a a concrete question. Do we? I'm prepared to support this in the abstract, but is there a process that we have? I mean, the review of all the students, citations, that sounds like it could get pretty onerous. And if there is any conflict, is there any process to work that through?
I think, Trustee Bauerlein, this is something that you've done every single year. What it has historically been is an affordability thing, a cost thing. So you can't assign a textbook that costs $400 and you're not going to use it. That's unfair to the students. So they did it as an affordability. What they've added to it now is substance, what's in the textbook. That is the new regulatory part. And so the answer to your question is, the affordability part we've been doing every single year. We go through it, we make sure that we're doing the affordability part, and it's not a problem. This will be the inaugural going through and approving textbooks. So it's indeterminate, but I know that I have full faith and confidence, in all likelihood, delegating it to our provost that will go through that process, and we'll do it in a way that's most efficacious for our program, for our students, and in compliance with the new regulation.
Thank you. So we need a vote on the motion that was made to table, that was seconded by Professor Harvey. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
1. All those opposed, say opposed or nay. Nay.
Opposed.
Opposed.
Nay.
Okay. That motion fails. We now have pending the motion that was made to approve the regulation 4-2003. Can we have a vote on that, please? All those in favor?
Madam Chair, before we vote, if I just ask one point of clarification, because a question was asked of Mr. Brickhouse, and I think my fellow trustees have begun to kind of extrapolate from that. And the question essentially was, is this mandated by the BOG, the BOG regulation? And I think Mr. Brickhouse's answer was yes, but Mr. Brickhouse, I think other trustees may have interpreted that to mean that there's exact language of specific regulation that we have to adopt. I just want to ask a clarifying question because I want us to be clear on how we're voting here. As I read the BOG regulation, it mandates us to have a regulation and it prescribes certain elements of that. But the regulation that we've crafted is unique to our institution. And so although we have to have a regulation, it's not that we're being forced to adopt exact language for the entire regulation. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
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 All right, all those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 1 opposed, motion carries. All right, Mr. Brickhouse, don't move. We have before us the acceptance of grant funds by the New College Foundation, Inc. And before Mr. Brickhouse explains it, I'd like to have a motion, please, for approval of acceptance of grant funds by the New College Foundation, Inc. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Spalding. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Patterson. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the President mentioned in his report, I'm honored to inform you that we received a $2.5 million grant donation from the DSF Charitable Foundation that provides for the construction and planning of a contemplative center. And so what we're asking this board to do, which would ultimately need to approve it for the foundation, is to request the New College Foundation, 1, accept the grant funds for the design, planning, approval, preparation, construction, and operation of a contemplative center at New College of Florida, And then 2, take all other such actions that the foundation deems necessary for the completion of the contemplative center. And so by design, the building would be constructed by the foundation. So we'll be taking this to the foundation board next, but we're asking for your approval here.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I just want to say, I think that's spectacular that the foundation and administration was able to go out and receive a gift of $2.5 million. It's probably one of the largest single gifts that the college has ever received, so congratulations to all involved.
It's the second largest, and I do want to take a moment. This was literally, and I say this rarely because normally it takes a village, to quote Hillary Clinton, but this one did not take a village. It took one individual who's new to the school, who had high school friends that he knew, that he gave a tour of the campus to. Those high school friends told another high school friend that you had to go see the school. They came and he gave those guys a tour. And as a result of that, initially we were just asking for $2 million. They ended up giving us $2.5 million. But it was literally 100% done by Dean Rancourt, and so all the credit belongs to him. He set the bar high for all staff, now has to do about a $2.5 million donation a year, and we hope that works out. But thank you, David.
Thank you, David, yeah. Okay. Well, everybody seems happy. We have a question on the motion?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. What's the timeline for the construction of the contemplative center?
As the last answer I always give you, as quickly as possible, because it could be a tremendous revenue for the school. So I think once it's approved by the foundation, which meets in about 2 weeks, we'd go right into architecture and design and finalize that, and hopefully we could break ground on it, again, first quarter of next year at the latest.
By when is the construction supposed to be finished?
It's not a big building. So I think it's something that could, that we'll be told that they could get it done in 8 months, and I would imagine it'll take 12. If the greenhouse is any indication how long something takes.
I also wanted to ask about the total cost for the construction, including the design and maintenance. Especially, I would want to know, like, over a 20-year period, for example, how much that might cost.
It's accounted for. We're not at that stage yet, so we have a $2.5 million donation, so that's the max budget, including maintenance, that we would account for. The reality is what we've done, Trustee Baldonado, is we've looked at all the contemplative centers at other universities. Most of them at the similar size come in well under $2 million. So we're hopeful that we can do it for $2 million or less, and that would give us the reserves that we would be able to make sure we could maintain it, or maybe use that for additional landscaping or what have you. But we think we're going to come in well under budget, but that process will take place after all the approvals. That would be the first stage, is getting architectural renderings and costs.
And so those funds will cover the construction and then the maintenance. Will it cover anything else beyond those two things?
We'll see. I mean, it depends on how much is, what the residual is, if any.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Spalding?
Yeah, so I actually have a general question. This is great, but I'm kind of wondering, when we approve this, does this mean this is our only approval? And the reason I ask that is I'm all in favor of contemplation. I think of the college as a contemplation center, because we contemplate here. This looks like to be a contemplation of religious, interfaith, ecumenical, spiritual purposes. That's actually quite important, and something that I, as a board of trustees, would like to see more about, and how it shapes and how it's going to be presented, because it will be at this college, which is a public university, but there are ways in which the public university, I think correctly, can have such centers that are perfectly legal and appropriate, and I'd like to know more about that going forward and see it and how they're doing it, and hopefully this is not giving them a blanket approval to proceed on their own.
Well, we would, on all things, including the budget, would come before you and what we're doing and how we're doing it, Trustee Spalding, and so you'll be kept up to speed on all fronts.
But we'll see what the proposal is and how it's going to be marketed and presented, and designed and all those things
Yes.
consistent with our
Yep,
opinions.
we'll bring all those updates to you, absolutely.
Thank you.
And Trustee Spalding, just to be clear, when you say they, it's really under the purview of President Corcoran that this regulation is overseen, and so he is the they, I think, in your question, and he obviously reports to this board.
No, I went the foundation. I just went, yeah, I know they're the same thing, but I just, it strikes me as something of significance, small, physically, not a complicated project, but it's very significant to have something like that at a college, a public college, consistent with how we understand the nature of these things in this country.
Absolutely.
I think it's an important thing that we should review again as it goes.
Agreed.
So but I'm completely supportive. I just want to make that point.
And
Get it,
it
and
will
we'll do
have
it.
to comply with state and federal law.
Yeah, that I agree with, but I'm also I'm making the general point, it also should comply with the mission of the college and our understanding of how we should represent such questions.
I understand what you're saying, Trustee Spalding. Absolutely, we'll do
That's
so.
all my point. Yeah.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, let's take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of approving the acceptance of the grant funds by the New College Foundation, Inc., say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition, motion carries. Mr. Brickhouse, it's you again on our last point of business here. We have before us the approval of transfer of surplus real property by the New College Foundation to Manatee County. Can I have a motion, please? Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Trustee Carp, may I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Anderson. Okay, Mr. Brickhouse, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last but certainly not least, this proposed action concerns certain real property located in a portion of Manatee County, commonly referred to as Tidy Island. It's approximately 180 acres of land. As you may know, the college has not utilized it since about 2021, I think was the last time we had professors use it. That professor is no longer with the college. We've entertained discussions with our environmental science professors to ensure if they had any outstanding or pending desire to use it, and that came back negative. So this would be a recommendation and express support for the donation by the foundation who holds the title to the land to enter into a donation agreement with Manatee County.
I just want to add, though, if I may, to the trustees, anything that we have done in the past or wish to do so in the future that was done in the past, even though it hasn't been utilized since 2021, we would negotiate with the county to allow our professors and our students to still engage in that activity, and I don't think it's going to be a problem whatsoever. So we'd still retain all of the usage that we would potentially our professors or students may like to engage in, but at the same time, they would assume the management of the property. It would be available to all citizens, not just a select few that are currently not using it. And it continues our great relationship with Manatee County. Again, they're the ones who gave us the 9 acres where we're building the Contemplative Center and hopefully the Freedom Institute. They work with us closely on all items, and we thought this was another way to build that relationship and to also let them know that they could put it to better use for the greater public good than we could, while we still retain all our rights that we would want to have available to us.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, trustees, to the president's points, I've been in actual negotiations with the county, and they want to be partners. That's how they're approaching it. And the other point that I'd like to make is just like when they were in the driver's seat making the donation on the 9 acres, we're going to dictate what the restrictions and access points will be for the college when we make the ultimate donation, and then that will go before the county commission for final approval. But they're really looking forward to a partnership.
Okay, any other questions, discussion?
Trustee Harvey.
Trustee Harvey.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, so just to reinforce those last comments, once this item went on the public agenda, I have heard from colleagues in, faculty colleagues in fields like environmental studies and marine bio that they do consider, even if it hasn't been used continuously, this is something that's important to them. So, I think if it can go forward as President Corcoran has suggested, that we can retain use rights to the facility for our faculty and students, though not exclusive rights. Yeah, I think that's important to go into the final agreement. Part of my duty as the faculty trustee is to pass on faculty concerns to this board, and just wanted to let colleagues know that I have heard from some faculty that they do think it's important to still have access to this, whether we own it or not.
Totally agree, Trustee Harvey, and we'll make sure we do that.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, and Manatee County is planning to use it as parkland, essentially?
Well, it's only accessible by canoe or paddleboard, so, and they have other parks in existence that have the same restrictions, so
Right.
it would just be another opportunity for other members of the public to be able to
Yeah,
access that.
they're not going to like turn it into,
No.
you know,
And
No.
they-
apartment building
no,
or
no, the
something, right?
restrictions on it-
So that's not an issue here.
The restrictions
Right,
are
they-
extensive.
They want to do estuary studies, preservation, all the things that you would like a community to be doing with sensitive lands like this.
Right, which I would assume a lot of our people would like to see them do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have motion, second discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right. Well, seeing that there's no new business, I would say that we're going to be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
trustees.
You're going to say we're going to, are we adjourned?
We're
You're just gonna
adjourned.
say it.
Well,
Without objection.
without objection. We're adjourned without objection. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all you folks on Zoom. Appreciate you appearing today. It's great to see you. Thank
Great
you.
to see everybody. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.